The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Employment.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member opposite for her speech and for her bill. Imagine traveling across the ocean from the old world to the new world 200 years ago and living through storms and the violence that can be the Atlantic Ocean, both in summer and in winter, but particularly in winter. And after 4 or 5 days on a boat, not really knowing exactly where you were, at the other end of the night, you see a light, a beacon of hope that symbolizes not only land, but a future for you and your family who are traveling to immigrate to a new world. That would be the story of many of my ancestors, the MacDonalds and the Armstrongs and the Tuckers and the Haymans, coming across from Europe to the New World. And fast forward 100 years or so to just after the turn of the century, when literally thousands and thousands of soldiers left Canada to travel to fight against the Germans in the First World War. For many of them, the last thing they would have seen looking back at their homeland, not ever knowing that they were going to return safely, would have been that light. Now fast forward again another 50 years, when we literally had many settlers come from Europe post-World War II. People like my mother-in-law, who came over as a Dutch settler at the age of 4, traveling with her family, a family with hope in their hearts, looking for a new life and a better life, escaping the ravages that were realized during the Second World War. And traveling across that ocean, literally millions of immigrants coming to Canada over the years, many of them, the first thing they would have seen of North America, the first thing they would have seen for this new life would have been that light. That's what we're really here to talk about today, Mr. Speaker, and I congratulate the member across for her diligence in working towards this particular piece of legislation. Now, we do have a rich lighthouse heritage. Canadians passionately want to see this heritage protected for the benefit and enjoyment not only of past generations, like the ones I've spoken about, but of future generations of Canadians. Lighthouses speak to who we are, where we've been. We are one of the world's great maritime nations, and lighthouses are a part of that historic nature of our country. And this is why this House adopted the Heritage Lighthouse Protection Act in 2008. And my colleague, the member from South Shore St. Margaret's, has been a strong advocate for this legislation and continues to be for lighthouses across the country. And although he is retiring this year, one of his legacies will be the Lighthouse Protection Act, and I congratulate him for that as well. And this is why Canada has nominated nearly 350 lighthouses to be considered for designation and protection as heritage lighthouses. And our government is determined to designate and protect as many of our lighthouses as possible under the Heritage Lighthouse Protection Act. To date, already 74 heritage lighthouses have been designated under the Act. A good number of these, 42, are still required as aids to navigation on our coasts and inland waterways and will remain under the custodianship of the Government of Canada. Now, they include some of Canada's most significant symbols of our maritime heritage. Some examples, of course, are the Cape Spear Lighthouse on the Atlantic coast near St. John's. Now, this was built in 1835. Also, the Fiskard Lighthouse on the Pacific coast near Victoria, which was built in 1860. There's also the Triple Island Lighthouse in the North Pacific in British Columbia, recognized nationally for the logistical challenges involved with its construction. And, of course, the Cape Race Lighthouse on the southern Avalon Peninsula in Newfoundland and Labrador. However, in many places in Canada, historic lighthouses are no longer needed to deliver Canada's extensive marine aid and navigation program. Now, in these cases, our government has in place mechanisms to facilitate the acquisition of treasured historic lighthouses by community groups, other levels of government, and in rare cases, individuals. Now, these different people, different organizations, and different levels of government can breathe new life into these symbols of our nation by giving them a new use. Identifying new owners for historic lighthouses that are no longer needed by the federal government is not just sound fiscal policy. We all know that the best protection for any heritage building is its continued use. And this is no less true for lighthouses than it is for houses, banks, schools, churches, or other built markers of our shared national heritage, our shared national identity. Now, through the implementation of the Heritage Lighthouse Protection Act, viable, responsible new owners have been invited to submit proposals to acquire historic lighthouses that are no longer needed by the federal government and to commit to protect their heritage character on behalf of all Canadians. The response from Canadians to this challenge has been nothing short of extraordinary. To date, community groups and other levels of government have submitted proposals to acquire more than 150 of Canada's historic lighthouses to protect their heritage character. That the majority of these proposals are considered viable, sustainable plans following the review by Fisheries and Oceans Canada is a testament to the commitment of Canadians to conserve their heritage. Now, currently, of the 150 proposals we have received, there are 32 heritage lighthouses that have been designated, which will ensure the protection and conservation of the heritage character of these historic lighthouses on behalf of Canadians and for the benefit and enjoyment of generations of Canadians yet to come. Now, some of these 32 heritage lighthouses that we manage by new owners are symbols of our small but proud and indomitable maritime communities that line our coasts in inland waterways. Yes, lighthouses, such as the ones I have mentioned, have economic value as well, as anchors of local and regional tourism, but the spirit that drives their conservation is more than economic. Canadians want to protect these properties because they speak to who we are. They are tangible, evocative markers of our maritime heritage. Other designated heritage lighthouses that we manage by new owners are symbols of larger maritime communities. The Brighton Beach Front Range Lighthouse, acquired by the City of Charlottetown, is but one example. Mr. Speaker, these are some of the great examples of Canada's lighthouse heritage. The Government of Canada and Canadians are grateful to the new owners of these and other heritage lighthouses. They have embarked with the Government of Canada on a great project to secure a bright future for Canada's lighthouse heritage. Their commitment to conserve their local heritage and determination to identify and implement sustainable long-term plans for their lighthouses are inspirations for us all. The government is committed to work with community organizations and other levels of government to bring these visions to reality so that they too can join this great family of designated heritage lighthouses that the Government of Canada and Canadians are building together. This is hallowed history of the oldest operating lighthouse in the Americas and part of Nova Scotia's heritage. I'm referring, of course, to the Sambro Lighthouse. For generations, this sentinel of the sea has helped illuminate safe passage of countless of mariners off the treacherous waters of Chebucto Head. The Sambro Island Lighthouse has already been in operation for 250 years. Now, over the years, members of the Nova Scotia Lighthouse Preservation Society and the Sambro Island Lighthouse Heritage Society and the local community have worked diligently to preserve and protect and promote this storied structure and educate people about its historical significance. In recognition of its importance, the Sambro Island Lighthouse was declared a classified federal heritage building. In more recent years, it's also been commemorated by Canada Post and also the Royal Canadian Mint. Our government wholeheartedly agrees that the Sambro Island Lighthouse merits designation as a heritage lighthouse under the Heritage Lighthouse Protection Act. But we want to do more than just designate this lighthouse. We need to do more. The Sambro Island Lighthouse deserves a bright and secure future so that Canadians can enjoy and appreciate our very own heritage for generations to come. To do this, the Government of Canada must continue in its quest to find a viable, responsible new owner for the lighthouse who can articulate and implement a solid plan that we will set this proud symbol of our shared maritime heritage on a course for another 2.5 centuries, marking one of Canada's greatest harbours, and hopefully, Mr. Speaker, it will stand strong for much longer than that. The Sambro Island Lighthouse has derived strong local and regional and provincial support from across Canada. It relishes the benefits of a valuable custodian in the fisheries of Oceans Canada and of a government that recognizes and acknowledges the immeasurable historical importance, and a government that is committed to working with Canadians to create for an enduring and sustainable future for the Sambro Island Lighthouse and for many lighthouses across this country. I thank the member for this legislation, and Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to speak on it today. Thank you.